A natural starting point when designing a class is, of course, going to be the attributes. What are the properties, the qualities of those objects that we need to represent through the data, through the variables? So, an attribute, which is also called a field or instance variable, is a variable defined inside a class that holds the state or data of an object. Remember the values that those variables are currently holding? We call that the state of the object. So all those instance variables, for example, the Honda, the Civic, the red, all those values describe the current state of a car object. So the purpose of attributes is to store object-specific information, represent the characteristics of the object, and of course, the methods are going to transform or use or access those values. So the methods might calculate something based on that information, right? So for example, for a car, right, if it has a price variable, maybe we need to calculate the actual total, right, after taxes. So we might have a total price after taxes method. So yeah, those methods will work off of those attributes. We'll look at that in some of the next slides. So each object has its own copy of the class attributes that are used to represent the state. Remember, that's the current data stored in the object. So here are some attributes for a car class. We have the make, the model. Make is another word for brand, by the way. And then we have mileage. So, how many miles does a car currently have? How many miles has it driven? The price, of course, got to be a decimal value. And then is pre-owned, right? Maybe we also sell used cars. So a Boolean variable right here is very useful. So default values. So in the previous example, all these variables didn't have any default values that we defined. So it's going to take on the Java default values, right? String, int, double, boolean. We covered how each of those types have a default value. Um, Now, sometimes you want to define default values, right? You want to give a certain starting point for these variables. Why would you do this? Well, because you want to avoid null pointer exceptions in some cases. You want to make debugging easier, so you want to give useful, more informative values. For example, for make, you might put make not defined. For model, you might give it model not defined as a starting point. For mileage, a good starting point, of course, would be 0. For price, again, also would be 0. For is pre-owned, I might start it off as false. So it's just useful, right? Especially for the make and model. If something logically doesn't happen the way it's supposed to, and then, in my final website, I see, make not found or make not defined as the car's make, then I know it took on that default value and it might make it easier for me to debug in the future. So that's why maybe when you're on a website, you see like a weird, value, a weird name. That's probably the default values that the programmer defined. So yeah, it helps ensure valid object state as well. So you want to give it, meaningful starting point, like I said. So here is an example of some default values you might give it. Unknown, unknown. I might be more specific. I might put unknown make or make not defined, right? If I want to be a little bit more precise with those starting values, those default values. So something we're going to cover in the next slides related to access. So I know we talked about making things public. We're actually going to cover why we make things private in Java. So keeping attributes private helps enforce encapsulation. Encapsulation is a core principle of object-oriented programming. So it turns out almost every single time when you're defining a class, especially for us that we're just getting started, you're going to want to make those class attributes private. And we'll explain why over the next few slides. So first, let's revisit access modifiers. Remember, these control the visibility or accessibility of class members. So that could be an attribute, that could be a method, that could be a whole class, right? Notice that even the class has an access modifier. So the most commonly used access modifiers, the ones we're going to focus on, are public and private. Public means everyone can access it. Private means only the same class can access it. So here in this example, the brand is public and the speed is private. So brand can be accessed anywhere. Speed, you can only access that value from inside the class. Now, again, we should be making these both private, and we'll explain why in these next few slides.